Welcome to Daily Harmony. Today, we're diving deep into a truly, well, provocative idea. It comes straight from A Course in Miracles, Lesson 240, and the title says it all. Fear is not justified in any form.
Yeah, that statement, it just stops you in your tracks, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Because, our everyday experience feels packed with things that seem to justify fear.
exactly. So to hear it's never justified, well, that's what we're going to explore in this deep dive.
Right. We want to unpack what that really means. Where does the Course say fear actually comes from?
And crucially, how understanding this might actually help you shift your own experience, move away from that fear and towards something, well, more harmonious.
hmm And we've got the tools for this exploration. We have the original lesson itself, Lesson 240, plus a really helpful study guide, with quizzes and reflection questions.
And some briefings, too, that kind of boil down the main ideas and give practical applications.
So our mission here is to pull out the most important insights from all this material and hopefully make them really useful for you right away.
Okay, let's jump right into that core teaching then. Fear is not justified in any form. It's just so absolute. What are the implications if we really take that seriously?
Well, if you accept the Course's viewpoint here, it completely flips the script on fear. It stops being, a valid response to what's happening out there.
It becomes.
It becomes an
Yeah.
illusion, something generated internally. The study materials really hammer this point home, talking about a mind trapped in fear, which then creates its own distorted reality.
A distorted reality.
Yeah, think about it. If fear isn't actually caused by the external situation, then the power to change how you feel isn't about changing the world. It's about changing your perception.
That's a huge shift because most of us feel like our fears are very, very real responses to real threats or problems. So if it's not external reality, where does Lesson 240 say it does come from?
This is where that key phrase comes in, mistaken perception. The idea is that fear isn't born from reality itself, but from how we're looking at reality.
How we're interpreting it.
Exactly. The briefings talk about a mind stuck in a cycle of anxiety and distress. And this cycle leads to a distorted view of themselves and the world around them.
So it's not like seeing a chair and thinking it's a table. It's more fundamental.
Right. It's about interpreting neutral events or even positive ones through a filter of past pain, anxiety, maybe limiting beliefs about yourself or the world. You end up expecting the worst.
Okay, so our internal software is kind of creating the fear response, not the external data.
hmm
Can you give an example of how this mistaken perception might work?
Sure. Let's take someone who went through a tough financial period years ago. Maybe now they're perfectly stable financially.
Okay.
But that past experience, it might create this constant nagging fear of lack, a feeling that it could all disappear any second.
Even if there's no objective reason for that fear right now?
Precisely. The fear isn't a logical assessment of their current bank balance. It's a mistaken perception driven by the past, coloring how they see the present and, fear the future. They might oversave or worry constantly, even when things are objectively fine.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. So in this framework, why is fear seen as such a major problem? What's the big deal about living with fear?
Well, the sources are really clear about this. Fear is basically positioned as the #1 block to experiencing love and peace,
The main obstacle.
the main obstacle. The briefing materials state it directly. Embracing love requires letting go of fear-based thoughts and beliefs. If the goal, as the Course suggests, is this inner peace, this connection grounded in love, then fear is the wall you have to get past. It literally hides the love that's supposedly always there.
Okay, fear is the block. But thankfully, the lesson doesn't just point out the problem. It offers solutions, right? Practical ways to move beyond it.
Oh, absolutely. Lesson 240. And the materials around it, they offer several really actionable things you can do. One of the simplest, but maybe most powerful, is the daily affirmation. I choose love over fear.
Just saying that each day.
Yeah, it sounds simple, maybe too simple,
Mhm.
but the act of consciously setting that intention, deciding that's your preference for the day, it reminds you that you actually have a choice in how you respond. You're not just a victim of fearful thoughts.
It feels like taking back control, doesn't it? Instead of fear just happening to you, you're actively choosing a different path.
Exactly that. You're steering the ship, and by repeating it, by affirming I choose love, you're you're training your brain, building a new habit. You start to notice the fear arising and remember, oh yeah, I have another option here.
There's also a mindfulness exercise mentioned. How does that work? What's the suggestion there?
The idea is when you feel fear starting to bubble up,
Hmm.
first just pause. Don't react immediately. Take a breath.
Okay, pause and breathe.
Then acknowledge the feeling. Like, okay, fear is here. No judgment, just notice it. But then, and this is key, you actively remind yourself. This feeling isn't the ultimate truth. It's coming from that mistaken perception we talked about.
Connecting it back to the core idea.
Right. And then you deliberately shift your focus. The suggestion is to focus on gratitude. What can you be thankful for right in that moment, even something tiny?
That shift seems crucial. It interrupts the fear spiral, maybe.
That's the intention, yeah. You break the momentum of the fearful thoughts by putting your attention somewhere else entirely, somewhere positive. Focusing on gratitude reinforces that there is good in your life, which kind of counteracts the scarcity or danger that fear often implies.
And what about the visualization technique? How is that supposed to help with fear?
This one's interesting. It involves actively imagining a situation that usually makes you feel afraid.
Okay, like public speaking or a difficult conversation.
It could be anything, yeah. But instead of just replaying the fear in your mind, you consciously visualize yourself handling that situation differently, responding with love or peace or understanding, whatever feels like the opposite of your usual fearful reaction.
So it's like mental rehearsal, but for a positive outcome instead of bracing for the negative one.
Exactly. You're creating a new blueprint in your mind for how you want to react. By doing this mental practice, you're actually making it more likely that when the real situation comes up, you'll have this alternative, more loving response available, rather than just snapping back into the old fear pattern.
The materials also talk about reflecting on past fears. How does looking backward help us move forward?
The idea is to take a specific recent instance when you felt fear. Really think about it. How did that fear actually affect your thoughts? What did it make you do or not do?
Analyzing the impact.
Yeah. And then the critical step is to ask yourself, what might have happened differently if I'd chosen love or trust in that moment instead of fear?
So it's like reviewing the game tape, seeing where a different play might have led to a better result.
That's a great analogy. You're learning from your own experience. By looking back through this lens, the lens of Lesson 240, you can start spotting your own patterns of fear-based thinking and see concrete examples of where choosing love might have genuinely changed things for the better. That self-awareness is key.
The lesson also mentions some very common fears, doesn't it? Like fear of lack, fear of rejection, fear of failure. It suggests these are also part of that mistaken perception. How does that work for such widespread anxieties?
Well, the Cordos basically suggests these common fears arise from a kind of fundamental identity crisis, misunderstanding who we really are and what reality truly is.
Can you break that down a bit? Fear of lack, for example.
Fear of lack, the teaching implies, comes from believing we're separate individuals living in a world of limited resources, cut off from some kind of infinite source or abundance. Instead of understanding ourselves as connected to or part of that abundance. Similarly, fear of rejection often comes from identifying with our ego, which desperately needs approval from others, rather than knowing our inherent worth, which doesn't depend on external validation.
And fear of failure.
That often stems from believing we're limited, flawed beings separate from our true potential, our true, inherently capable self. The alternative offered across the board is a shift in perception towards trust. Trust in abundance. Trust in our innate value. Trust in our connection to something greater. Replacing fear with faith and love, essentially.
And this contrast, this dichotomy between fear and love, it seems really central to the whole teaching, right? They're presented as total opposites.
Absolutely. They're framed as mutually exclusive choices. You're either choosing one or the other in any given moment, in any given thought.
Why is choosing love consistently painted as the way out, the path to peace?
Because, according to this perspective, love is the fundamental reality. It's the essence of our being, the fabric of the universe, you could say. Fear, on the other hand, is the illusion, the distortion that hides this truth and creates all the suffering, the separation, the anxiety.
So love connects, fear separates.
Exactly. Love expands, it unifies, it brings peace. Fear contracts, it divides, it breeds anxiety and conflict. So, by consistently choosing thoughts and actions rooted in love, you're basically aligning yourself with what the Course says is real. And in doing so, the illusions of fear just naturally start to dissolve. You experience more peace because you're living closer to the truth of your nature.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Bringing it all together, what's the main takeaway for you, the listener?
I think the most powerful message from Lesson 240 is this sense of possibility. It's suggesting that the fear that might feel like such a constant, heavy presence in your life, it doesn't actually have a solid foundation in reality. It's built on your perception.
And recognizing that, recognizing its illusory nature, is the first step to taking away its power.
Precisely. It opens the door to experiencing life with less anxiety, more peace, more, well, harmony.
And it's not just an intellectual idea. We've talked about these practical tools, the daily "I choose love over fear" affirmation,
Mindfulness pause, where you acknowledge fear but shift to gratitude.
the visualization practice, rehearsing loving responses.
And that reflective practice, looking back at past fears to learn from them, these are all real things you can actively do to start integrating this teaching into your life.
There are ways to engage with this, not just think about it, ways to actually start dismantling fear when it shows up.
There are experiments you can run in your own life. And reflecting on past experiences gives you your own personal data on how fear works for you and where love might offer a different way.
So this deep dive, as always, is really just scratching the surface, offering a starting point for your own exploration.
Definitely.
So maybe here's something to really sit with. If fear truly isn't justified in any form, if it's just a kind of shadow play created by our own minds, what does that actually make possible for you?
Yeah, what new paths open up if you were to consistently, consciously choose trust and love instead?
What would it genuinely feel like to move through your day knowing, deep down, that the anxieties that often grip you aren't actually rooted in truth? That's something worth contemplating, isn't it?